second.
Thank you. All right. And order of business.
With some vote.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
That's okay.
Oh, deep breath. Oh, we need a roll call vote starting with D.
A roll call for that.
Just all
We
in
just do an
favor.
aye,
Yeah.
an all call?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's all right.
Aye.
Aye.
Yay. And,
It's a good start.
yeah, and I'm turning bright red, okay. All good. Are there any public appearances tonight? Seeing, yeah.
Order of business.
You know what, let's do order of business first.
Okay, there are two recommended adjustments to the agenda. Item J1, we're going to postpone to the next meeting. Lisa Hype unfortunately has been under the weather, and so we can delete that off of tonight's agenda. And then secondly, item L3 on the preliminary notice also can be deleted from the agenda.
Great. Meeting's getting shorter by the minute.
That's right.
It is.
Plus, it'll be nice for other people to go to hear. Also
Great.
support.
Now we'll check in on those public appearances. Are there any for tonight? Thank you. All right, we need approval on the consent agenda.
All right, move approval of the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second it.
Thank you. And can we do
All those in favor?
all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Can I vote no?
You can.
Sure. Any votes nay?
Yeah. Nicole Carlisle has been awesome, and I told her I was not going to vote yes on her resignation. So I vote no.
Go.
Thank
Nay.
you. Nay. Thank you. All right. All right. And any recognitions tonight?
Yeah, do have one. I'd like to recognize Monona Went, who is retiring from the district. The board actually approved her retirement at the previous meeting, but Monona has spent 26 years in the district as a Phi Ed teacher, and she will be sorely missed. One of the many, but truly outstanding educators that, you know, puts kids first, and she had an opportunity to announce to the CGS staff last week, so we certainly wish Monona well in her future endeavors as well.
Thank you. Yes.
I don't know if it's appropriate, I just like to recognize again the production of Les Miserables. It was fantastic. I just don't see how that's all put together so well and done so
Professional.
that with pure amateurs so young too. It's really a great evening performance, and all the family I bought tickets for approved.
Yeah, I'll just add, and I know, you know, those of you that have been in the district much longer than I have come to get used to the outstanding performances, but I think the buzz that I've heard from this one is just amazing.
Yeah.
I
It's
mean,
such a challenging show, and they did
Yeah.
a spectacular job. Orchestra and the cast, everybody.
Yeah.
Directors, obviously.
All right. Correspondence and announcements. We have the election report.
Okay, so you have the, for the record, the tally for the election results, and so I'd like to publicly congratulate our incumbent, both incumbents, Susan Fox and Dean Bowles, who were reelected to additional three-year terms for each. So.
Congratulations. Yes. Yeah. Any other correspondence or announcements?
No.
All right, thank you. We'll move into administrative reports, and as already stated, item J1 has been postponed, and so that moves us into the superintendent's report.
Okay, two short items. First of all, I've given you a tentative timeline for the process for hiring the Winnequa Associate Principal. And I want to be careful not to say too much publicly to, respect the confidentiality of those applicants. But I can say that we received 111 applicants, and we are very excited about our applicant pool. And
Wow.
so hopefully we'll work through the process and tentatively be able to come to the board on May 10th with a recommendation.
111.
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
Well, that's because it's a fabulous district, right? And a fabulous
Absolutely.
job.
Yeah.
But that's amazing.
yeah. So.
Who's forgotten to apply?
111.
Okay. All right, and then the Second part, facilities planning process. Just wanted to note that we'll intend to have this on the agenda as a discussion item at the next meeting. Jared and I have been working through putting together our recommended process. As you recall, we had a workshop last month, and we had talked about coming back right away in April and talking about this. So I just wanted to let you know we haven't forgotten about that, but we've been consulting a number of individuals, other districts that have gone through this, as well as some of the key players, construction management and architectural firms. And so we feel good about, the process that we're going to recommend, and so we'll have it for discussion at the next meeting, not necessarily action, but to talk through a detailed process and timeline as we move forward with facilities planning.
Thank you. All right, board reports, policy committee.
Policy committee met on April 5th, and we completed work on policy 2340, field and other sponsored trips before, and also 9601, student memorials, but we're going to review them at our next meeting before bringing them to the board for formal approval. And then we agreed to ask legal counsel to draft language for policy 5610, suspension and expulsion, language regarding specifically the role of the board in review of expulsion determinations by our hearing examiner, as well as submissions to the hearing examiner. And then we'll still have input, but we thought it would be easier to start with them to make sure we didn't get anything wrong. And then otherwise, we hope to address meal updates at the next meeting, which is on Wednesday, May 3rd at 9 a.m. And there are a few policies later on the agenda for review from previous committee. So that's it.
All right, thank you. And that moves us to item L, possible action items. And first up is the Girls Hockey Cooperative.
Okay, so this is a renewal of our current cooperative that we have. You see with a number of the schools that are involved, McFarland, Oregon, Stoughton, Evansville, and Deerfield. And so we are recommending approval of another 2-year cooperative agreement, and recommendation comes from our athletic director, Jeff Schreiner, and we're very pleased with the way the program the co-op has worked, and asking for another 2-year approval.
Move approval of the Girls Hockey Cooperative with McFarland, Oregon, Stoughton, Evansville, and Deerfield school districts for the 2017-18 and 2018-19 school years, as presented.
Second?
Thank you. Discussion?
This is great.
All those in favor?
All those in favor?
Yeah.
It just seems so
No, just-
easy.
That's right.
I feel like it should be more complicated. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 It's so easy, maybe you'd like to continue in this.
I love it, okay. Item 2, under possible action items, the revised board policies, 0167.5, 1120, and 2370. And typically we take those separately, don't we, for discussion, or do you wanna keep?
We can do either or,
We can
so.
do it either way.
Yeah.
Whatever people would prefer. I think we have talked about these before a couple weeks ago, and there have been no changes since then.
Okay.
The 0167.5 is the use of electronic mail, and you do have in board docs both the clean copy, because there were enough changes that it's pretty hard to read the marked up copy, but they're both there, and hopefully people have time to look at them. And then, just a reminder, 1120 was just a matter of, but the administrative team was just a matter of striking the second paragraph from our old policy. And 2370, educational options, was a matter of adding study tours and or exchanges, so pretty simple, really.
Yeah, Carrie.
I want to thank the policy committee for their work on this. I felt like we've already covered this, and I was ready to move approval of revised board policies, 161.5, the bylaws, 1120, administrative team, and 2370, educational options, as all 3 of those are presented.
Second?
Thank you. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, and our third item has been taken off our agenda, so yes. All right, which moves us to discussion items and our preliminary budget.
All right, so attached to the board docs is the 2007-2018 budget planning calendar. And I'll just briefly walk through some points of interest or some upcoming events, but before I do that, I just wanna talk a little bit about our process and where we're at in that. Currently, all of our, buildings are in full-fledged budgeting mode, and, we're doing a little different, collection model this year. Before they would just get Skyward printouts, they would put some dollar amounts, but we're actually using technology and doing Google Docs, so I definitely appreciate the work that they're doing. And we're still doing the zero-based budgeting method. The zero-based budgeting method is, we're doing it in 2 ways this year. Our buildings were given an allocation based on students, but how they're doing that zero-based budgeting is they're actually going into the Google Docs and listing out specific items and developing a true roadmap of how they plan to use that money. And then at the district level or district departments, they're using a true zero-based budgeting, which means that there's no allocation. They're using the same Google documents, doc concept, but there's no allocation, so they're working through that as well. So last week I met with all the buildings, did a formal training on that, and halfway through all of our district departments as we speak. So the goal of it is buildings will get theirs, everything should be turned in for a cabinet to start reviewing by the middle of May. And we will bring, obviously, information to the board as it becomes available, but definitely in June, you will, at your first meeting in June, you'll start having that initial conversation, and then we'll need approval at the end of June at your second board meeting for the preliminary budgets. However, just some things that are coming up at the next board meeting, we will be bringing forth our student fees. We will ask for board approval. We don't anticipate any changes from what we've done in the past on the student fee concept. If you recall, a couple of years ago, we did do a modification. We used to have hundreds and lots of fees, and we modified that so it's across the board. One of the things that I do want to note is that field trips, we've typically have charged families for field trips. We are moving through the budgeting process of if it's part of the curriculum, and every student needs to attend, it's being part of the budgeting process. So hopefully being able to eliminate those fees that are passed along to families. Obviously, we might have to partner with the PTO and stuff like that to do some of those things, but the buildings are definitely, it's a change, and it's working through that. The other part of it is as Dan had sort of mentioned, staffing, but at the next board meeting, we will be bringing our final staffing plan. And as the agenda is sort of laid out, you'll be discussing that, and then I will sum up some things in the budget side of things with approval, but we definitely have been working through those types of things. You did approve the K-8 and the high school, and pretty much what's being finalized is our related arts concepts, and that's all really driven off of the number of sections that we're offering and movement throughout the district. Then in May, we will continue to work through that. Schools and departments will then be able to start, based on the final approved budget at the district level, they'll start preparing the requisitions, and then once the board approves, then those can be submitted and entered and sent off to the vendors. As all school finance, our budget's not technically finally approved until November, the end of October, beginning of November. Due to the fact that we don't know our numbers until the third Friday count in September, and October 15th when we get our final equalization aid. An update on the state budget concept, their joint finances in full-fledged of their public hearing. Based on reports and things like that, there's definitely some great support for public education. We have learned joint finance has removed 83 policy portions of and they have said that they're going to start with the governor's budgets, except for the Department of Transportation, which is somewhat good news to us because we were hearing that they were going to potentially start at zero with everything. So hopefully, the recommendation, obviously, it does not get us back to where we need to be at, but it's definitely a much improved concept of getting $200 on the concept for public education. Other than that, it's pretty much, we'll be working through this all the way from now until the final one's approved in October.
Question, what does that mean for the potential 12% teacher pay for healthcare? Is that considered a policy issue or a budget issue?
Well, it's still in the in there. So I mean, I consider it a policy, but that was not one of the policy ones that got removed.
Okay, that's what
And when I attended the testimony in Berlin last week, pretty much well, not everybody, but most of the people who spoke on the public education concerns spoke in opposition to that regulation, partly because of local control, because there are other districts that did different things too with co-pays and all kinds of stuff, and they just, and Governor Walker at some point issued a statement that he might, he said something to the effect that he might be open to removing the contingency of the whole Act 10 compliance, because I think they hadn't really thought that, they hadn't thought that through real thoroughly, so it's still there and it's still in the budget committee, but they were hearing a lot of testimony against it, so hopefully they're listening to that. And
It would seem to me
We'll see
that
where it
most
goes.
districts have responded to Act 10
Right.
in some way, shape, or form, including the healthcare issue, and that simply opens up, like all the efforts
Right.
that we've made on dealing with the healthcare that,
Right. And just to clarify
Yeah.
on the Act 10 language that Governor Walker and the legislator did pass, is Act 10 specific language stated that if you were part of the state health insurance plan,
Right.
you needed to comply with the 12%. And so really, you know, since we left the state health insurance plan, and most school districts are not on the state health insurance plan, that they did not have to comply with Act 10 on that portion. WRS, obviously, every school district that I'm aware of complied with that portion of Act 10.
And I think they've kind of expanded it to point out that, well, compliance with Act 10 meant using the tools and using all that, which there was a lot of testimony about people saying, we have used the tools and we still really need this $200. So there was really everybody who spoke, and there were community groups who also spoke, as well as superintendents, all spoke in favor, in support of the $200 per student minimally, and many asked for more, which, so.
And I'll just add, I mean, as far as being compliant with the statute, let's be clear, every school district is compliant,
Right,
okay?
right.
And I think it's disingenuous to say, you know, to call this Act 10 compliance, but
Right.
it's a political statement, as we know. But the positive thing has been stated, you know, clearly our representatives get it and support that. What's more importantly, the Republican representatives, you know, throughout the state are hearing, you know, from their constituents that, you know, all the things that have been done as far as the tools. And even here locally, we all know that there were major changes done. Our retirement, you know, system, even though they were done collaboratively, certainly the process was different, and even the change with the health insurance provider, you know, it was a great collaborative process, but the reality is, we changed it without bargaining, but we did it in a different nature, but that, to me, is using the tools, absolutely,
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
so,
And they did hear a lot of that, so hopefully.
yeah, so, as I said, unfortunately, it's beyond the control of our local representatives, but hopefully that message will be heard.
It was put in there strictly to punish Madison. That's why it was put in there. He didn't really think it through, he just wants to punish Madison, who still works strongly with MTI, so. But I think he's finding that there's a lot of unintended consequences to that. Hopefully it'll change tremendously, so.
Anything else for discussion? Thank you for your report. Thank you. Thanks for your work. All right, which brings us to item N, future agenda items.
I'll go first if you don't mind,
Yes.
just to let you know, so as far as board reports, tonight's report that was postponed on the technology and professional development, with that, we intend to bring it the next meeting. And then we also intend to, Krista will report out a follow-up report on mental health. Recall, we had that report about 2 months ago, and there are some specific follow-up questions. And so the intent of that report will be to be clear about the range of services that we do provide in district, you know, by our student services staff and teaching staff for that matter, and what are the sorts of challenges that we have that we are not equipped to handle and we need outside agencies. And so that will be the focus of the report. If there's something in addition, or if that's not what board members, if there's something additionally, please let me know. We'll make sure, Chris will know, we'll make sure we include it. But I think now is a very relevant time, and that's also, of course, as we know, potentially some dollars involved in the state budget with mental health, and so we can speak to that as well.
Any other agenda items?
Sort of, but not a
Here.
specific agenda item, but the
Okay.
meeting schedule for future meetings, do we have that drafted now for 2017-18? Like what the next meetings are gonna be?
The dates of the actual
Yeah.
meetings. you will approve that at the reorg meeting
Okay.
next time.
I wasn't sure when we'd be seeing that,
Yeah.
pretty much
On the
any time now.
26th, so you'll see that.
Okay,
Great.
thanks.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
Good.
Anything else?
We have to slow down, we might get done by 7:30.
Move to adjourn at 7:30?
I'll add one final thing, but I
Darn, sorry,
That's
Dean.
bad.
Couldn't do it.
don't know if we're done with the future agenda item, but on the future meetings, I have a comment, so,
Anything else for future agenda? We're good? All right,
okay.
go ahead.
So future meetings, the reorganizational meeting is our next meeting, and just want to clarify that we intend to do that reorganization as part of the regular meeting as opposed to a separate meeting. This board has done it both ways in the past. I did clarify with Boardman Clark just to make sure, as far as the option there, and that's actually the recommended way of doing it. So that way, if we do need a closed session, we can do that at a normal time at 6, and then begin the regular meeting at 7 and do the reorganization first, and then move into our normal items. So if there's not a closed session, we'll begin at 7 o'clock.
Okay.
Thank you for that clarification. Good. All right. Do we have a motion to adjourn?
7:32? Move to adjourn?
Second?
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Wow, nice